Hello, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into one of the greatest crime stories ever told, a tale of a brilliant, high-flying con man. But here's the twist. What if the story itself was his biggest con of all?
We all know the story, right? You've seen the movie, maybe you've read the book, the incredible legend of Frank Abagnale Jr., this teenage mastermind who charmed his way around the entire world.
Well, get ready for this. It turns out, that whole unbelievable legend, that might just be the most successful con he ever pulled off. And today, we're going to dig into it.
Okay, so before we tear it all down, let's just quickly recap the legend. You know, the official story. The one that made Frank Abagnale a household name.
Think about it. Posing as a Pan Am pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, cashing millions of dollars in fake checks all across the globe. And he did it all before he was 19 years old. The story is just perfect. He's this charming anti-hero running circles around the establishment, living this unbelievable life by just being smarter than everybody else.
But then, someone decided to actually check the facts. An author and historian named Alan C. Logan started digging. And, well, that's when the whole thing really started to unravel.
And what Logan found in the public records, actual prison documents, police reports, old newspaper articles, it told a totally, radically different story. Not some jet-setting genius, but a pretty ordinary, small-time crook.
So what did those records actually say? Let's get into it, because this is where the Hollywood movie gets a serious reality check. This is where the fiction stops and the facts kick in.
Right. So this is where that glamorous tale really collides with the gritty, not-so-glamorous reality. So the myth has him flying all over the world, right? Living this glamorous life on the run. The reality? Public records show that for most of that time, from age 17 to 20, he was locked up. Yeah, not exactly jet-setting, he was in jail.
And just look at this timeline here. The biggest takeaway is just the complete lack of opportunity. He couldn't have been impersonating pilots and doctors because he wasn't even free to do it. The FBI wasn't on some huge international manhunt. It was just local cops picking him up over and over again for petty stuff.
Okay, so what about the whole pilot thing? Well, there's a tiny kernel of truth there. He did dress up as a pilot for about 3 months. And not as a teenager, but when he was 22. And you know that famous escape from the airplane toilet? Even Abagnale himself admits he just slipped out through the kitchen galley. A little less dramatic, huh?
And that's the thing. His real crimes were, well, they were a lot less glamorous. He wasn't outsmarting these giant, faceless corporations. He was targeting regular people. This was not a victimless crime spree.
So yeah, forget the idea of him stealing millions. The documented truth is so much smaller, and honestly, kind of sad. Let's talk about this number, $1,200. That's how much he stole from the family of a flight attendant he had stalked and dated, and according to them, how did he do it? He just rifled through their checkbooks. This isn't some slick Robin Hood. This is a guy preying on the trust of an ordinary family.
So all of this brings us to the real con, the one that actually did make him millions, the one that made him famous.
It turns out his biggest con wasn't forging checks. It was forging his own life story. He sold us a fantastic lie, and boy did we buy it. That story, that myth, became his most profitable and longest-running scam of all.
And look at how he did it. He gets on national TV. He co-writes this sensational tell-all book, sells the movie rights to Hollywood, and then boom, he launches a lucrative career as a speaker and a consultant, all based on this supposed expertise from a life he never actually lived. And he is still cashing in on that story. Every single time he tells it, he's making somewhere in the ballpark of $20,000 to $30,000.
That's for one speech, a single speaking engagement where he gets up and retells his fictional life. The lie, it turns out, was way more profitable than the actual crimes ever were. He conned his way into being famous, and that fame pays very, very well.
Okay, but this raises a really interesting question, and it's about us. Why did we all fall for it so hard? Why were we so ready to believe him? Really think about it. Why do we want the myth to be true? Why is the exciting lie so much more appealing than the boring old truth? Well, maybe it's because we just love a good story. We love the idea of an anti-hero who beats the system. It's way more entertaining than the drab reality of just petty crime. The movie was a thriller, not a documentary. And we just prefer the drama. Maybe the myth of Frank Abagnale is really more about our own desire for a little adventure and rebellion than it is about him.
It really comes down to that old saying, right? Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. And this is the perfect example. It shows just how powerful a great narrative can be, powerful enough to completely replace documented facts. And Frank Abagnale, well, he gave everyone one heck of a story to work with.
So it leaves you with the question, doesn't it? Who's the bigger con man? The guy who forges a few checks, or the guy who forges an entire legacy? It's definitely something to think about the next time you hear a story that just sounds a little too good to be true.